We'll update you on everything that's been happening around the world. Now, the protesters in Tehran continue to demand the resignation of the senior leaders following the admission of the authorities that Iran had accidentally downed the Ukrainian passenger plane, resulting in the deaths of all 176 people on board. The Ukrainian International Airlines flight PS-752 bound for Kiev crashed just minutes after taking off from the Imam Khomeini International Airport in Tehran on the 8th of January. The British ambassador to Iran has denied claims that he had joined the street protests in Tehran after he was arrested and then later released by the Iranian authorities. This comes as Iran's Basij militia, which is affiliated with Iran's elite Revolutionary Guard Corps, protested outside of the United Kingdom's embassy in Tehran, demanding that it be shut off. Now, the visuals on your screens show a large group assembled around a small truck with speakers erected onto its roof, and many of these protesters held up placards written in Farsi and also pictures of the assassinated General Qasem Soleimani, blaming the Americans for the act. Meanwhile, protesters in India's national capital, New Delhi, have demanded the government should shut down the US embassy and also end relations with Washington over the killing of the Iranian General Qasem Soleimani in the airstrike. A sea of protesters took to the streets and marched with placards and posters of Qasem Soleimani, expressing their dissent over the killing of the top commander. The Soleimani's death on the 3rd of January in the US drone strike on his convoy at Baghdad marked the end of a man who was a celebrity back home and was closely watched by the United States, Israel and also Tehran's regional rival, Saudi Arabia. And thousands of protesters gathered outside of Madrid's City Hall to protest against the new Spanish coalition government formed by the Socialist Party and Unidas. They're waving Spanish flags and shouting, "Long live the King" and "Long live Spain." The protesters listened to a speech by the far-right Vox Party leader Santiago Abascal, who called on Spain's Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez to defend the Constitution and Spanish unity. After nearly a year of caretaker governments, Sanchez narrowly won the parliamentary backing on the 7th of January for Spain's first coalition government in decades. The development ended a long political stalemate but left him reliant on a fragile patchwork of alliances to pass laws. And tens of thousands of demonstrators marched through eastern Paris against the French government's overhaul of the pension system, which aims to replace France's myriad of sector-specific pension schemes with a single points-based scheme. The public service workers, along with labour unions and Yellow Vests protesters, gathered at the Place de la Nation Square before marching to the Republic Square. This, with a few scuffles and tensions on its fringes, with the police firing tear gas and also charging groups, smashing windows and lighting rubbish bins and billboards on fire. Negotiations between the French government and trade unions failed to break the deadlock over the pension reforms, as both sides have stood firm ahead of a fifth day of nationwide protests. The 7th Democratic debate takes place on the 14th of January in Iowa. So far, 6 candidates have qualified, including the former Vice President Joe Biden, former South Bend, Indiana Mayor Pete Buttigieg, Minnesota Senator Amy Klobuchar, Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders, Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren and billionaire environmentalist Tom Steyer. The debate will be hosted by CNN in partnership with the Des Moines Register. The National Public Opinion poll found that Biden has a slight advantage amongst the registered Democrats, though Sanders is the most support when independents are factored in. And Malta's incoming leader, Robert Abella, has promised to strengthen the rule of law and has said that the country will emerge stronger after going through a sensitive time. Speaking to crowds gathered at Palos Corradino Sports Pavilion to celebrate his election as party leader, Abella told the supporters from the Labour Party that we will try to go together in the same direction. A political newcomer, Abella is set to become Malta's new Prime Minister following a recent vote. The election result became known early, with Abella winning 58% of the votes. Of some 17,500 members of the party, he was up against Chris Fearn, the Deputy Prime Minister and the Minister of Health, who had been the initial favourite to win. The Colombian police thwarted an assassination attempt against Rodrigo Londono, former commander of the demobilized FARC rebels, better known by his nom de Gior Timochenko. General Oscar, the director of Colombia's national police, has said that officers killed two men who planned to commit the attack, which was ordered by the commanders of dissident rebels who decided to return to conflict last year. The police said an informant provided them with details of the assassination attempt against Londono. The Londono, who was the highest commander of the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia when a peace deal was signed in 2016, now heads the FARC political party, which preserved its Spanish initials after changing its name to the Revolutionary Alternative Common Force. And Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador has said that a monument will be put up to memorialize 9 U.S.-Mexican dual citizens who were ambushed and slain last year by suspected drug gang assassins along a remote road in the northern border region near New Mexico. In remarks to members of the small town of La Mora, which was shattered by the 4th of November 4th killings of 3 women and 6 children from the extended Langford, Lebaron and Miller families, Obrador said that the first goal is to bring those responsible to justice. Now, the president said that an agreement had been reached with state officials to establish a monument for special recognition of those who risked their lives to rush to the aid of the victims and survivors. An Alaska man whose remote cabin burnt down in mid-December was rescued by the Alaska State Troopers. Tyson Steele was picked up in good health at his remote homestead 20 miles outside of Skiwetna. Skiwetna, with a population of about 35, is 70 miles northwest of Anchorage. Steele's family members had not heard from Steele for several weeks and had requested that the troopers should check on his whereabouts. The trooper helicopter crew reached the homestead and saw Steele waving his arms near a makeshift shelter. He had stamped an SOS signal in snow. Steele told troopers that the mid-December fire had left him with no way to communicate. Now, Uganda is on high alert after swarms of locusts spread across East Africa as the country's Ministry of Agriculture warned that the locusts could invade the northeastern part of the country. Now, the government has announced that it is ready to handle the threat after an infestation was reported in neighbouring Kenya. Now, the ministry said that the wider spread of the desert locusts in Kenya puts Uganda at a high risk of invasion by the end of this month. The head in charge of agriculture has said that the country is working with the Desert Locust Control Organization for Eastern Africa and other development partners to contain the spread. The locusts are believed to be the hardest pests to control due to their migratory behavior. And Canadian Dan Duron's New Year's resolution involved flying to the other side of the world to battle the raging bushfires. The Duron from Sturgeon County in Alberta began reading about the extent of Australia's bushfires in October, but as November and December passed by with an increasing amount of damage wrought by the blazes, the Canadian flew to Australia on New Year's Day, all on his own dime and without having informed anyone. The 10 years after a deadly quake ravaged Haiti, the Caribbean nation remembered the hundreds of thousands of victims who were killed in the tragedy. On the 12th of January, back in the year 2010, the impoverished island nation was struck by a devastating earthquake that killed hundreds of thousands and left many more homeless. Now, the earthquake lasted for just 35 seconds, but its scars are visible to this day. Bad governance, excessive bureaucracy, waste and inflated contracts were given mostly to foreign companies have been blamed for the lack of progress, which was hampered further due to corruption and political power struggles. After President Jovenel Moise attended a memorial ceremony, protesters interrupted the event in anger over his government. The Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's decision to step back from royal life was questioned by some Brits, as Queen Elizabeth II has called for a crisis meeting to discuss the future arrangements for the couple. The people in Sandringham, where earlier in the day the Queen had attended church, said that Prince Harry couldn't just decide not to be a royal anymore and that his wife should have known what she was getting into when she married him. The Britain's royal family has been thrown into turmoil by Prince Harry's announcement that he and his wife, who are together officially known as the Duke and the Duchess of Sussex, will step back from their roles as senior members of the British royal family. Now, Harry's father, Prince Charles, the heir to the throne, and also his elder brother, Prince William, also attended the meeting at the Queen's Sandringham estate.